The Buffalo Bills did not talk to the press during their walkthrough at Gillette Stadium today ahead of Sunday's game against the Pats, but it is safe to assume there's one thing on everyone's minds today: the condition of Bills safety Damar Hamlin, who went into cardiac arrest on the field Monday night. And he is now fighting for his life in the ICU. There's also been a lot of focus in the past day or so about how the NFL handled Hamlin's collapse, taking an hour to officially postpone the game after medical staff administered CPR for about 10 minutes before getting him to the hospital. All of this while his teammates and, of course, the fans looked on in horror. The NFL later denied it originally planned to restart the game, but that's not how it looked to many viewers, including journalist Ernest Owens. He cited speculation that, quote, the NFL didn't even lead the charge in canceling the game. The shaken coaches, captain, and players from both teams apparently called it quits. That's from a piece that he wrote for the Daily Beast titled, "NFL proves yet again it doesn't give a damn about black players." Ernest is also the author of the upcoming book, The Case for Cancel Culture. He joins me now, as does Ben Volin, senior NFL writer at the Boston Globe. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. This was an incredible thing to watch on television, Ben, as we saw players that were basically collapsed to the ground after they saw Damar Hamlin collapse. I mean, I can't remember a time in watching NFL, in recent memory that this has happened.
Truly a gut-wrenching scene on Monday night in Cincinnati at the Bills-Bengals game. I think you immediately saw the seriousness of the injury by the reaction of the Bills and Bengals players when they saw Damar Hamlin faint to the ground and immediately fighting for his life. And kudos to the medical staffs for the Bills and the Bengals for being right on top of him. And I think saving Damar Hamlin from an awful tragedy in the NFL as well. Damar Hamlin's heart had stopped functioning, and they got it back to normal beating again on the field. And I think their quick action really saved his life. And this is, as you said, this is not something that happens really ever in the NFL. The only other incident I can think of is in 1971, a player had a cardiac incident on the field and later died. But, the medical staffs, they do all this training every year to prepare for such situations and never have to use it. So, the time finally came, unfortunately, and I think they really rose to the occasion. So kudos to the medical staffs for the Bills and Bengals for really being on the spot and saving Damar Hamlin's life.
Yeah, and I know that the response, Ernest, has gotten a lot of criticism, including from yourself. Talk to me about, in watching this unfold, the response from the NFL, the response on the field. What was going through your mind?
I think that what's really important is the way that the NFL as the organization institution handled it, right? It took them, a little over an hour to finally decide to cut the game. And it wasn't their choice. The teams had to put their foot down and say enough. And that says something for a league that has already been riddled in controversy, from the issues with CTE to other concerns around racial inequity. It's really frustrating that even now they're still prioritizing profit over the people. And I think it became very clear to so many fans and also observers such as myself why, once again, the NFL continues to not prioritize the health and safety of its players.
So I know that there's been a lot of conversation about whether or not that 5-minute restart actually came from the NFL or not. I know that ESPN has doubled down and said that we got this. We were told that they had to reset in 5 minutes.
Yes.
But, the NFL saying that didn't happen. As we were talking about Damar Hamlin in the ICU right now, I mean, what does that conversation need to be?
Well, so the NFL had another media call today on Wednesday, and Troy Vincent actually came out and once again adamantly denied that there was ever any conversation about restarting the game. And he said he was the main point guy. He was on the phone with the official and with both coaches. And he says there was never any talk about restarting the game. Now, I've developed a theory. I think I know what happened. The information came from the ESPN's rules analyst, John Perry, a former NFL official, worked Super Bowls. He's in direct contact during the games with the league's instant replay booth. The guys in New York City who are determining, all the instant replay decisions. And I think that's where the information came from, kind of a lower rung on the ladder of the NFL, not from the higher ups. And that's where I think there was some confusion that potentially that information came from the instant replay, the officiating people, not from the executives who are truly in charge. So I think maybe that could explain and could allow, there's wiggle room for all sides to be correct. Troy Vincent could be correct that they never asked for the 5 minutes, and the players, I think, are correct that if they hadn't stepped in, maybe the game would have continued. Because in most cases where there's a traumatic injury on the field, in all sports, not just football, the game usually continues. It's very rare for them to postpone a game. So I think there was more of a mix-up in communication than the NFL truly trying to just move along with the game.
Yeah, and Ernest, I know you have to leave in a few minutes, and so and I'm going to continue our conversation with Ben. But what did you make of all of this back and forth about who was making those decisions out there?
Personally, I think that the long delay from the NFL on that whole decision shows me that there was some incompetence there. I think that the fact that there was even any type of entertainment of continuing the game after seeing those players take a knee and pray, to see that crowd go instantly silent, and to see someone being rushed out with an ambulance after being CPR. Right? I think that the humanity has to be remembered here. And I think that the game should have been called immediately. I think that when you see a situation where CPR has to be administered and you have to see that traumatic expression on those players, it is really hard to deny the impact that would have had on the game, regardless of whether or not it was an emergency or not. So I really think it's important for people to remember that these players are humans, they are people, and that their safety matters, and that the fact that it took a year for them to do this, an hour to do it felt like a year, is unacceptable. So I think people need to remember that.
All right, Ernest, I can hear your phone buzzing, so we're going to let you go. But Ben, I wanted to ask you a few more questions here as we see that this is also a moment where football and other sports are looking at how to make the game even more safer. Yeah. I know that there's been a conversation about putting plates over the chest. My husband coaches high school lacrosse, and he's been talking to me about the changes in that game. And we really don't see these types of injuries outside of sports with projectiles, with balls and things like that. So where do you think that this is going to be a pivot point for the NFL to start thinking about what the pads look like, what other safety equipment look like?
So that's a great question. And to me, this incident is different from the concussion incident. And to me, the NFL deserves all the scrutiny in the world over how they handle the concussions and continue to moving forward. We see all the time, even now with their protocols, the concussions slip through the cracks and guys are able to play when they're clearly concussed. But to me, this incident, it really does feel like a rarity, a one-off situation. I've been doing research for other similar incidents, and they seem to happen in sports, like you said, lacrosse, hockey, baseball. This is not a football-specific thing. Unclear as of now if Damar Hamlin had a predisposition for any sort of heart condition. A lot of unknowns right now. Yes, the NFL will always look to improve equipment, and maybe there is some sort of chest protector that they can introduce. But if anything, to me, this just validates the NFL's medical protocols. Not necessarily how safe the game is, but they had an AED on site, and they had 30 medical professionals at the game, and emergency physicians who were able to get to Damar Hamlin within seconds of him having his issues on the field. So to me, if anything, it just showed how well the NFL prepares for situations like this, because it hadn't happened in decades, and they handled it very well.
I want to talk about Damar Hamlin as a player, because it looked like he really touched so many lives on that team in Buffalo. The fundraising is, it was $2,500 that he was on the GoFundMe for his, I believe it was his mother's daycare, and now it's in the millions of dollars. What impact has he had in Buffalo?
Yeah, I think before this incident, Damar Hamlin was just one of the guys. He was a second-year player. He was a sixth-round pick, so certainly not, a blue-chip kind of player, not a superstar by any stretch, but universally beloved. His teammates all loved him. He came from, I think, a rougher part of the Pittsburgh area, and Mike Tomlin, the Steelers coach, said he's known Damar Hamlin since he was 12, and to see him make the right decisions to better his future and to work his way into the NFL and to avoid some of the pratfalls. Mike Tomlin just talked about how proud he was of Damar Hamlin and the person he's become. And the charity you mentioned, it originally began as a toy drive, a Christmas toy drive, and this was before before he was famous, he was just a University of Pittsburgh college athlete, starting this. And so it seems like Damar Hamlin has always had a good spirit. And it's been really heartwarming to see the NFL community rally around him, donate millions of dollars to his foundation, and just do something for him while he's obviously going through these very tough times.
The Bills are going to play the Pats on Sunday. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of eyes on that game, even more so than there already was going to be.
It's going to be an unprecedented display, no question, emotion on both sides. As of now, the game is still on. The NFL, Troy Vincent did kind of leave open the possibility of who knows, that maybe the game doesn't ultimately get played. But for now, there are no discussions. It's moving ahead, full steam ahead. 1 o'clock on Sunday in Buffalo. Going to be a very emotional scene for Bills fans, for the team, for even the Patriots. I mean, for anyone who's involved in football, you had to be affected by watching that scene on Monday night. And it'll be tough for the Bills. I mean, this is a big game now for playoff seeding. They're playing really well. They have Super Bowl hopes. Is it going to be tough for them to regroup from all this? Are they going to be able to use this as a rallying point? Obviously, all eyes are on the Bills, and all of our hearts are with them as well. And you can't help but feel for the Bills. And this is going to be a very emotional game on Sunday.
All right. Ben Volin, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.